Hi, G here again. My second video. I'm going to do a review of the Nikon D5100. I'm also going to talk a little bit about VR, non-VR lenses and why I prefer the lens that I've got here. My iPad here will just, this is my Flickr account, and we'll just show you some pictures that I've taken recently. Hope you enjoy those. So firstly, the Nikon D5100. I'll just quickly show you the camera. Top, sides, bottom. Now, what made me buy the Nikon D5100? The main reason was the fact that it's got the same sensor as the D7000. 16 megapixels, plenty. My only concern was the flippy outy screen, which I wasn't keen on. It's the sort of thing that I'd probably knock off at some point. I didn't like the fact you had to keep opening it and closing it, which is why I've put the screen on it, so I basically keep it against the body. Now, while I was out in London doing a bit of a photo shoot the other night with some friends, had a D60, a D3000, a D3, and someone had a Canon. I was the only one that had a flippy outy screen. At some point during the evening, everybody mentioned how useful this was for not having to crawl around on the ground and taking low-level pictures, etc. And I've actually found it to be quite useful, so that's turned out to be quite a good thing. Feature-wise, it's got everything you need. There are a couple of things which are quite annoying. They've done away with the little sensors, so that when you put it up to your eye, the screen goes off. So that's done away with. But the way you get rid of that is just a half press of the shutter and it goes away. It comes back when you've released it. So it does sort of work anyway, but it's not quite as good as having the sensors under the viewfinder. The other thing they've done away with is you can't get grid lines in the viewfinder when taking pictures, which for me would have been quite useful because I tend to take all my pictures slightly on a slant and have to sort them afterwards. The screen itself is very clear, very usable. You can tailor-make this to how you want it. It shows a visual representation of your shutter, and then around the edge of that is your speed. So as you go up, see that's changing, it moves around the edge. A lot of the things you change are on here, but there is one function button which is there, which has got the timer thing on, and it's easy to find this function button without looking because you feel the little dimple and then the function button's next to it. So whilst you're on the fly you can find that nice and easy. I suggest, and I've set this to ISO, so you hold that, turn your wheel, and that changes your ISO, which is quite nice. My only negative, and it is my only negative point, actually there's two negative points. One is there's no connection on the bottom for a proper Nikon battery grip. I've tried an aftermarket one, it was okay, but you have to have a lead going, which gets in the way of the screen when you're using it once you've got the lead plugged in. And with a big lens on, shooting vertical, I can actually feel movement in it, and it's very plasticky, so I've done away with it. Basically, so that's one gripe. The second gripe is I use single point autofocus, so as you can see there it's gone up to the top focusing point, I hope you can see, and you change it, your focusing points, by moving this little D-pad. However, when I'm shooting, I quite often find that I just knock that with my thumb and I come to take a shot and the focusing point is over on the right hand side, so I have to quickly push it back to the middle and then take my shots. What I would have liked to have seen, or perhaps they could do this in an update, a firmware update, I don't know, is a lock, so that once your focus point is set to the centre, you can lock it so that by touching that, won't move it. That would be a lovely feature. If it's got it already in here, I don't know about it, let me know. Other than that, it takes great pictures. The live view function is very good, very usable. It's obviously slower when you're taking a picture. But you can move the focusing point around to where you want it. at any point, focus, and then take the picture. So that works quite well. This completely baffles me. There's an info button here and an info button here, and I don't know what this info button really is for. All it seems to do is turn the screen on and off, but you can do that using the shutter half press anyway, so you know, why have that? They could have used that for another function. They could have used that for changing from single shooting to multiple shooting, something like that. So there are little bits that, you know, need addressing or could have been addressed, which is a shame because it could have been an absolutely perfect camera. But as it is, I still love it. I'm really enjoying shooting with it. The lens I've got on here is an older Nikon 18-70 3.5 to 4.5 DX, so it's specifically for a DX body. So it's 18-70. Now the kit lens I thought was absolutely appalling quality. It felt horrible, it felt plasticky. The focus ring at the end was dreadful. The zoom ring was stiff and clunky. The VR, it was okay. I suppose if you want to use it for videoing, then use it for videoing, but even then, as soon as you start zooming, the VR can't compensate from having to move the zoom ring around. So I ditched that. I sold it on eBay and bought myself the older 18-70 non-VR lens. Now the benefit of this is it's an f3.5 to f4.5 as opposed to the 3.5 to 5.6 as a lot of the other ones are. And you know, in my opinion, for photography you don't need a VR lens on a small lens like this. I'm not knocking VR. If I could afford the 16 to whatever it is Nikon for, I don't know, £400 or £500, then I'd love to have it. But this lens you can pick up for between £75 and £120. The quality of glass, you can put filters on it because the end doesn't turn when you're focusing like the 18-55. You can't even put a circular polarizing filter on the 18-55 because the end spins around. So for my money, this is a much better lens. It's got much more glass. It's a 67mm filter size. There's loads more glass in there, and it just trounces the 18-55 for quality. There's just no doubt about it. If you can live without the VR, this is the way to go. If you want to keep your VR for videoing, then you know, I can see that's the only use for it. But if you get this on a tripod with a nice pan and tilt, you can get quite good video anyway. Anyway, that's my review for the Nikon D5100. Thank you for listening.